Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I'm your host, Richard Costello, and today I'm pleased to introduce Bradley Cumming. Bradley is VP Investments with Freed Developments in Toronto and oversees an investment group which is responsible for the company's real estate acquisitions, dispositions, deal structuring, and capital raising. In his role, he has transacted on development sites within the GTA as both a purchaser and vendor, which collectively would allow for the future development of over 4 million square feet of gross floor area, which is around 5,000 residential condo units. Over the last 12 months, his team has raised several $100 million of both debt and equity for new acquisitions and structured partnerships with several large-scale real estate-focused Canadian financial institutions. Bradley has a Bachelor of Commerce from Dalhousie, a Master's of Finance degree from the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto, as well as a CPA license. Bradley, a big welcome to you and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, Bradley, I have a feeling your story will be of particular interest to any accountants out there who have aspirations to get into the more strategic side of the real estate industry. And your career has really accelerated since leaving public practice behind in 2015. And it will be interesting to learn how you made the jump from senior staff accountant to VP investments for one of Toronto's most interesting private developers. Perhaps before we get into that, though, what can you tell us about life growing up? And what would you say contributed to your decision to ultimately work within the real estate industry?
Yeah, sure. I guess just a little background on myself. Born in Calgary, but had the luxury of being raised abroad. So I was raised in both New York, Singapore, and London. I guess earlier on, I took an interest in investments generally. I'd say I was pretty agnostic on asset class, but had the benefit of watching my own father's career, who at the time was working as an oil and gas trader. It wasn't really, I'd say, until later in life, until I was working at EY, where I had the opportunity to work on a number of real estate-related engagements, that I found a passion for real estate. And it was through that process that I ultimately decided to, at some point, work towards moving into a real estate investment role.
Right. Okay. So your career began in public practice at EY. What were the biggest takeaways from your 3 years in this world?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time. It was my first job out of school. I actually started with EY as a co-op student. So at Dal, we had a co-op program where, you did 3 co-op terms. So I did those all at the firm and then joined on full-time in 2013. And generally, it was a great place to work. As a young person, I think finding that first experience is quite important. And I think one thing the firms do well is, supporting staff to take on, big roles quite quickly. So, I recall being at a client site within just a couple of weeks of joining the firm, and quite quickly was able to take on, more complex engagements and things like that. So, generally it was a great place to be, allowed me to get my CA, kind of develop a work ethic. Generally, I'd say it was a pretty positive experience.
Fantastic. And reflecting back on the process to obtain your CPA designation, last week it was well documented that due to physical distancing requirements, thousands of CPA students were holed up in hotel rooms for up to 3 days as they sat the final exam for their CPA certification. I thought that showed pretty incredible ingenuity on behalf of the CPA. For those that are maybe unaware of the process involved to secure those 3 letters by your name, would you mind giving us an overview of exactly what it takes and also how you feel the CPA designation helps in your current role?
Yeah, sure. So I guess in terms of qualifying as a CA, so I was the last or part of the last cohort to earn the designation under the legacy program. So I'm a little less familiar with the requirements today, although I understand, they're quite similar to what they once were. But at least, when I had gone through the process, there were a number of requirements. So I think to start out, you needed a bachelor's degree with some form of specialization in accounting, which I got at Dal. There was like a testing and examination component. So it was spread out amongst 3 forms of examinations. So there's one called the CPA, which, if I recall, was about a 6-hour multiple choice assessment, and 2 larger exams, one called the SOA, which I think stood for the School of Accountancy, and the UFE, which was a 3-day exam, which was the last one, so the largest of the 3. The firm was great in supporting everyone. There was about 100 people, I think, that were pursuing the examinations at the same time, so there was a good sense of camaraderie. The whole process took about a year. And then to supplement that, there's a work experience component. So at the time, I think it was just under 3 years where, you were at the firm and you needed certain types of experience. So you needed, I think it was like 100 tax hours, a certain number of audit hours, et cetera. So start to finish, it took about 3 years.
Coming back to how the CPA has benefited you in your current role.
Look, I don't work in I'd say a purely financial reporting capacity, but its benefits, I'd say, are quite apparent in my own work. I guess I can provide you with a number of examples, but just in structuring investments generally, there are certain things that at a very high level are important to investors, which would be what equity is required, when am I receiving a distribution, what will that distribution be, and the basis for all of those are oftentimes founded in some form of accounting. And so in projecting results and comparing against actuals, it's oftentimes based on certain financial reports that are being provided. And so I'd say a general familiarity with either the numbers or perhaps tax exposure and structuring different deals are both paramount. So I'd say without that, I'd be unable to participate in the structuring of these deals.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so your first move out of public practice was with First Capital in an analyst role. How were you able to make the move from that position to manage your investments with Freed?
Yeah, so that was, I guess, an instance where everything kind of just came together. I look back at First Cap fondly. It was an interesting time in my life. So I was working full time. The master's program at Rotman is intended to be a part-time program, but based on its curriculum, it's often viewed as a full-time commitment. So I was working and studying simultaneously. It was funny. I was engaged that year, and at the same time, I was pursuing my first triathlon. So there was a lot going on for me, but somehow I was able to make it all work. But while I was at First Cap, I had decided for myself that at some point, given the opportunity, I'd like to pursue an investments role, for a private developer. And fortuitously, around the same time as when I was finishing the program, I was reached out by a recruiter, presented the opportunity, and it just so happened that my first day at Freed was the day after I finished my master's program. So everything kind of panned out in that regard.
Well, before we get to your current role, for any of our listeners not familiar with Toronto, what can you tell us about Freed developments?
Sure. So we operate as a private developer, real estate investor in the city of Toronto. We've been around for about 25 years, and I'd say we're vertically integrated in that we own a number of subsidiaries that support our development business. So we own Pearsall Realty, which is a brokerage that serves as our exclusive listing agent for all of our new sale. Quite active in the resale business as well. We've got about 100 agents, 3 offices in Toronto, and just opened our 4th office up in Muskoka. We own a construction manager called FirstCon, who in a lot of instances serves as our GC. And we've got a number of other silos. So we hold a portfolio of vacant properties in the downtown core of Toronto. We invest in service companies and hospitality assets, so a couple bars and restaurants. Resort communities, so we have our investment in Muskoka called Muskoka Bay, which is a resort community with world-renowned golf course. Our bread and butter has historically been development, and that's definitely where we spend a lot of our attention. We popularized ourselves, I'd say, with the development of King Street. So we did about 10 towers there. I think over the course of our history, we've probably done about maybe 20 buildings. I think just over 10,000 units, which I'd say is probably just in excess of about $5 billion worth of total value. And since building out King West, we moved into a number of other areas within the city. So Yonge and Eglinton, We have a major site out in Etobicoke right now, in various other neighborhoods. So, we've got, I'd say, an expansive portfolio of deals at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. So what sets Freed apart from other developers in the city? And I'm not just referring to the fact that Karl Lagerfeld designs your building's lobbies.
Design has always been a huge component of what we do. And we supplement that by believing in the fact that lifestyle components, when integrated appropriately, generally add value to real estate. So I'd say the emphasis that we put on lifestyle in what we do may be slightly larger or much larger, I'd say, than a lot of our competitors. And you can feel that in our buildings and the communities in which we invest. We're an IR-driven firm. Our LP partners, rely on that, and that's always been our first priority. But in building out our projects, we're able to do so in a way where we're also prioritizing our design, oftentimes when possible, offering or including a mixed-use component, with the goal of lifting the entire node in the community. That's been the forefront of what we've done in the past and what we're looking to do going forward.
Bradley, let's get a snapshot of your contribution to the business. Would you mind telling us about an exciting deal that you've closed within the last 12 months and what attracted you to the opportunity?
Sure. So we're actually on track to close 3 major acquisitions this year. So it's been an exciting time for us. In terms of exciting deals, the acquisition of the DVB Hotel comes to mind. So we closed on that in January of this year with Fengate Asset Management as our partner. So that was an acquisition for about $102 million. We held a pre-meeting in July of this year, and we're in the process of preparing an application, which we'll actually be submitting on Tuesday of next week for 2.1 million square feet. So that would, if successful, allow still about 2,700 residential units there, plus a collection of commercial space. We were excited about the deal for a number of reasons. We're always, looking to partner with good companies. This is our first deal with Fengate, and we were happy to be able to do this with them. And it's a deal that fits into sort of our parameters of the sorts of entitlement opportunities that we're looking to enter into moving forward. We prefer large sites that would allow for the development of master plan communities, sites that are on transit, and sites with, strong planning rationales. So, it checks the boxes that we were looking to check. And, it's definitely exciting for us to have completed. We had never actually planned to close a hotel acquisition leading into COVID. So, it's been an interesting time in that regard. The hotel itself is about 350 rooms. It's something that Freed is responsible for managing. So it's been interesting just navigating sort of the COVID waters, if you will. But we seem to be doing it quite well.
Well, since you brought up the C word, what has been your experience in navigating through the COVID environment, and what's been the impact on your business?
Yeah, it's hard to summarize the impact specifically, just given that we've got so many different, sub businesses that roll up to Freed Corp. But I guess as a snapshot, we hold a portfolio of retail assets located in the downtown core, and like anyone else, retail's suffering right now. We've been negotiating with tenants, trying to find terms that work for them and for us as a landlord. The CPA program that was rolled out by the government has been, tremendously helpful and something that's been appreciated, I believe, by most landlords, ourselves definitely. We've seen a little bit of a return to normalcy. Tenants are improving much or performing much better than they had been earlier on this year in April, May. And we're hopeful but cautious, I guess, that that performance will continue and that we'll be able to return to a more stabilized portfolio sometime next year. But we realize that, the effects, will last for, a continued period of time. And we're just as a management team prepared to continue dealing with those. On the development side, we had a couple sites that we had launched sales. One site in particular, we launched in October of last year. Another that we had intended to launch, during the COVID period. And from our experience in April, May, there was very little going on. Sales centers were shut. No one was sure sort of what the market was going to do. And so there was definitely very little going on in that regard. But we've seen a good uptick over the last couple of months. We're sort of back on track with our sales, and we suspect that we'll be able to put together the sales we need pretty quickly. So it's definitely positive momentum. It seems like things are moving in the right direction. So it's been interesting. I feel like now generally the taps are back on. With lenders. Our partners are willing to continue to enter into deals. So yeah, we're doing okay.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. You're observing an uptick in activity, and fingers crossed it continues in that direction. I think we've all done a great job in Canada, comparatively speaking, so far. Well, turning to the subject of financing, you touched on it there. See, it's a big part of your role. What changes have you seen in financing that have been made available to private developers such as Freed?
Yeah, I guess from a pricing perspective, I'd say with prime now down to 245, down from 345 in I think March of last year. Naturally, I guess you'd expect that there would be savings that would be transferred to borrowers. And on refis, there would be opportunities to benefit from this ultra low rate environment. And in some circumstances, that seemed to be true, and in others, it feels as though that some lenders, particularly non-Schedule A lenders, suspect that there's higher credit risk in the market right now, and so pricing has kind of remained consistent as to where it was leading into COVID. So I'd say generally a little bit of a mixed bag. In terms of availability, there was a period, again, like the first couple months, March through to May, even June, where, it felt like everyone had kind of chosen to sit on the sidelines, just waiting to see how this thing plays out. And since then, it feels like the taps are back on, as I said previously. We just firmed up on a deal. It's a $67 million acquisition. And, we had 3 term sheets from different lenders, all of which, we'd be happy to finance the deal through. So, I think in summary, deals are probably being subjected to a little bit more scrutiny and underwriting than they would have, pre-COVID. But for the right deals, I think that the financing's still there.
And I understand Freed has either exited or is in the process of exiting 2 major master plan community sites that have been assembled in the GTA. So as far as strategy goes, is Freed more interested in the entitlement phase versus executing full developments?
Yeah, I mean, our business is the development of real estate in Canada, and that will always be our business. One of the things we do very well, in addition to building out mixed-use development projects, is land assembly, acquisition, entitlement work. So when we structure our deals, we'd like to structure them in a way where there's optionality and to exit post rezoning if the economics make sense to do so. So you're entirely correct. There have been a couple deals as of recently that we chose to exit post rezoning. But I think it's fair to say that in the majority of cases we continue on to the build out. But that optionality is definitely something that we look for entering into a deal.
The values that we embody at Highview Partners are integral to everything we do. Be the best, do what's right, force for good, and enjoy the journey, guide every step of our process, and influence our actions and behaviours. This podcast was inspired by the value enjoy the journey, which includes building meaningful relationships within our professional community and giving back to an industry that we care deeply about.
All right, well, let's turn the focus on you a little bit. As VP Investments, how is your success defined within the company?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say we're a performance-driven company, so I think we do a good job of identifying our targets, our goals, quarterly or annual goals, and we do a good job of sort of outlining those for the larger group. And that's something that we collectively all work towards. I'd say for my group specifically, being the investment team, we've got a couple of mandates. One of the most important being the management of existing deals, and 2 being the addition of new deals to our portfolio. So, I mean, having talked previously about some of the deals we've closed this year, We're very proud to have been able to add these, 2 to 3 new projects to our portfolio. And, from that perspective, I think we've performed quite well, if I can say that. But to answer your question, we're a performance-driven company.
And what does a typical week look like for you, perhaps pre-COVID?
In general, the day for me, I'm an early riser. Right? I like to wake up around 5 o'clock, typically at the office around 6:30. And Peter Fried and I often spend our mornings working together, reviewing whether new acquisitions or existing projects, financings, etc. And then my own team and I get together typically around 9 o'clock, outline the plan for the day and the week. And from there, we sort of just attack those goals and do our best to get things crossed off the list. So, we're busy, but I think it's fair to say that we have a good time doing it.
I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier about your triathlon training. I'm wondering how that's fitting into your current work schedule.
You know what? It's for myself. Like I find I enjoy a 12-hour day. Like I can do that and feel pretty good. There are many instances, particularly when we're looking to take on a new site, where your schedule is oftentimes requiring significantly more time in the seat than that. But on average, at least for myself, I think outside of 12 hours in a day, the returns tend to diminish. And so I prefer to use that time to get a workout in or do something personal just to kind of reset and prepare for the next day. So I guess I'm regimented in that regard, but I try to get it in where possible.
So what do you think are the important skill sets required to be successful in your role?
I'd say there's a couple. From my experience, knowledge can be taught. So when I look to hire for my group, particularly for more junior roles, I start by evaluating personality. So drive is very important to me. If a candidate is hungry and dedicated, oftentimes I'm less concerned with technical knowledge. As from my own experience, with a good work ethic, candidates can oftentimes bring them up to speed in a matter of months. So, that's paramount to me is finding someone, that's ready to work hard and is passionate about what the team is trying to work towards.
Bradley, beyond your internal team, who do you need to have the strongest relationships with in the industry in order to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, the real estate industry across Canada and within the GTA is very close knit. There are a collection of very useful consultants that we and many other real estate investors rely upon. That group includes for us, our lawyers, our brokers, our lenders, our planning consultants, our architects. It's an extensive group. And this group of consultants, it serves to a certain degree as an extension of our internal team. And they fill a critical piece that's required in order to close and execute on our development plans. So this group is very important to us. And as a result, we do our best to foster positive relationships, and experiences with everyone we deal with.
Bradley, as someone who has had a rapid rise into senior leadership, how do you go about honing your management style?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, it's something that I think about a fair bit. It's definitely something that, I'm still working on, and I suspect I will continue to work on for the rest of my career. One of the more difficult aspects that I face in my own role is this concept of serving as both a player and a coach. So, at Fried, we are so busy that I don't necessarily have the ability to serve in a purely leadership capacity. And as a result of that, I've got my own work that I need to produce and to simultaneously serve in that coach role to the rest of my team. So, from my experience, goals are most likely to be met when egos are checked at the door, everyone has bought into a common goal, and everyone is willing to sort of lean in and get the work done. And, it sounds simple, but, for me, at least in my own experience in managing my current team, that's been enough, I think, to serve as a good leader and to make sure that we're accomplishing the things we need to accomplish.
And what does great leadership look like to you then?
Yeah, I mean, another good question, but, I understand there are different types of leadership styles, and a lot of research has been placed into, determining the best approach. For myself, I think I like to keep it simple and lead by example. So, I provide the support and mentorship to my team and create an opportunity for my staff so that, to the extent they're willing to put in the work and invest in themselves and the group, they have the opportunities to succeed themselves.
All right. Well, what do you enjoy most about working in the real estate industry?
I am interested in investments across asset classes. Had I not gone into real estate, I would have contemplated obviously another, whether private equity or fixed income or all of these other options. But for myself, it's just a passion about the assets. I love the ability to the tangible nature of the assets and the ability to shape communities. That I think is a supplemental layer to real estate that a lot of other asset classes don't have. But aside from the assets and the deals themselves, I guess I just link it back to the comment I made earlier, just about the community. From my experience, it's a pretty great group to be a part of. A lot of smart people that work hard and are passionate about what they do. So, it's something that I have a lot of fun doing, and I enjoy being part of that community.
And what's one passion that you have outside of work that perhaps people at work might not know about you?
Well, those who know me, know that I kind of traveled growing up. That's something that's still of big interest to me. My wife and I, we love Southeast Asia. We were there last year, and but for COVID, would be there right now. So, a love for travel, which I think a lot of people share. But for us, it's quite important, and something that we hope to keep a big part of our life moving forward.
Yeah, lots to explore there. Okay, well, I've got 4 quick-fire questions for you. So let's get these going. So number 1, what's the one restaurant in Toronto where you like to take out-of-town guests?
Yeah, sure. So there's a spot on Ossington called the Union, and I think it's considered to be French Canadian food. But the chef had trained in Paris for about 10 years and has been cooking there, I think, for the last 7 or something. It's fantastic. I recommend it to everyone.
Nice. All right, number 2, what's the one TV show that you've recommended most often?
It's got to be Breaking Bad.
Okay. What's your favorite place in Canada for a summer vacation?
So my wife's family's from Montreal. I've always loved that city, and to the extent possible, we try to get there a couple times a year. So definitely Montreal. Okay.
Last question: business casual or 3-piece suit?
See, that's an interesting one. So leading up to COVID, we're a formal team. We wear suits to work, but the jeans are growing on me. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with fashion trends in the workplace. But at this point, I'm a little undecided, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not you're not growing into the jeans, are you? Like most people during COVID.
maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, listen. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really great to get to chat to you and to hear about Freed. And yeah, it sounds like you've got a really exciting job and plenty of work ahead of you.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed being with you today.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.